Hi folks, I hope that everyone is having a wonderful new year so far. This video will be my first TBR for 2026. I spent the holidays in the UK and it was magical and wonderful and exactly the right amount of cold and misty and festive. And while I was there, I was able to visit a bunch of different lovely little bookshops and some not so little bookshops. And I have a bunch of books that I want to show you that I'm planning to read going into the new year. In classic starting the new year off on the right foot fashion, I'm hoping to read some classics, including one book that I discussed in my video about overconsumption and the books that I've owned for more than a year and never read. You can check that video out here, but let's get into it. The first book that I bought in the UK was Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day. I bought this in Bath at this beautiful bookshop called Persephone Books that I believe is the official bookshop or one of the official bookshops for the Persephone imprint. So all of the books in that bookshop were bound in this way with this Persephone imprint logo. And this book came with a special Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day bookmark. The print on this bookmark matches the inside cover of this edition, which I think is so cute. Miss Pettigrew is about a governess in the late 1930s who is in her 40s and is, I think, about to be let go by her employer and doesn't have anywhere to go and is concerned that she's going to be destitute on the streets. And it is, I believe, a Cinderella story of sorts. So it follows her over the course of her fortunes changing and meeting a man. And I think by the end of the book, she, has this like really unexpectedly sort of magical happy ending. And it's a very interesting take on that in that it takes place over the course of one day. So if you look at the table of contents, it's divided into chapters that are just the different times throughout the day. So it starts at 9:15 a.m. and it ends, the last chapter is 3:47 a.m. to ? And that's the end of Miss Pettigrew's day. There is a movie that I think I have seen a long time ago starring Frances McDermott about this book, but I definitely also, after I read this, want to go rewatch that movie because I don't remember literally anything about it. The next book that I bought was from a little village near Winchester, and it's A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce. I thought this was a very beautiful cover, but it is also one of the Wordsworth Classics 3-pound editions. So I picked this book up extremely cheap, which I was pleased about because I think it's really pretty. And it has this nice sort of cardboardy, papery kind of cover, which I like. I have wanted to read something by James Joyce for a long time and several times have picked up either this or Dubliners or Ulysses in a bookstore and started reading it and then eventually put it down and just felt intimidated by it. But maybe because it's the new year and maybe because it was so affordable, I thought, let's just do it. I'll just try it and see what happens. My understanding is that James Joyce's writing style sort of evolved from being very realistic and concrete in the Dubliners through this as a sort of intermediary book. I don't know if this is a prequel to Ulysses or if Ulysses is a sequel to this, but this is about Stephen Dedalus before he is then the protagonist of Ulysses as well. And then by the time he wrote Ulysses, James Joyce had sort of evolved into having a very literary, figurative, metaphorical, allegorical kind of writing style. But this book is supposedly well, the back of this book at least says, it is the transitional stage between the realism of Joyce's Dubliners and the symbolism of Ulysses, and is essential to understanding the later work. This one is also quite short, and I think is supposed to be pretty funny. I think it isn't quite such a maybe intellectual lift, let's say, as Ulysses, and so it's supposed to be a bit more accessible. It's about the protagonist Stephen Dedalus in his sort of youth, adolescence, and then maybe university years. And I think it is about his journey to try to come to terms with himself as an artist and what he wants in life, and the journey that, most people go through in their sort of late teens and early 20s to shake off some of the conventional restrictions maybe that you were raised with and actually carve out a life that is what you want for yourself, but while sort of laboring under just a lot of confusion, and the world is a big place and there are a lot of opportunities and it's really hard to figure out who you are and what you want. So hopefully this one, even though it is a classic and a canonical literary work, hopefully it won't be too heavy a lift. The next book that I bought came from another bookshop in Bath called Topping and Company. It was pretty crowded, so I didn't try to record any footage of that bookshop, but I'll find a screenshot on the internet somewhere and include it. It was really adorable, and they had so many wonderful books, including an incredible selection of first edition and first edition signed works that, as far as I could tell, were just mostly priced at sort of standard hardcover prices. There were a few editions that I saw. They had, for instance, a first edition signed copy of The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt, and that was like £400. But most of the books, at least the sort of new contemporary books and new releases, they didn't seem to be priced any differently, which I thought was cool. And so I got this beautiful signed edition of The Emperor of Gladness by Ocean Vuong. I was very intrigued by this book because Cameron from Slaggy Book Club put this in her top books of 2025, and the way that she described this book in her review made it sound just so existentially lovely. It's about a 19-year-old in Connecticut who, I think after high school, doesn't get into any colleges and just works at a restaurant, maybe like a minimum wage kind of job, and doesn't really have a life plan to improve his circumstances or a clear path out of essentially poverty. And his relationship with the other people that he works with and with his mother. And one of the things that Cameron said was so wonderful about this book is that it isn't a book in which the main character has this, brilliant plot arc and by the end of it has gotten to a better place, right? This is genuinely a book about someone whose life is quite difficult and their ability to just find beauty and joy in moments of life, despite the fact that life is probably not really going to get any easier for them. And that just sounded really wonderful. I'm not putting this on my first TBR for the year because I'm trying to be very cautious about how many books I take on, since I'm trying to read some of these classic books. I don't want to take on too much, and so I'm really trying to limit myself just to basically 3 classic books for this first TBR, but I'm really excited to get to this one in the very near future. The next book that I bought was just from a Waterstones. I also got this like really cute little sort of magic witchy tote bag that I was then using to carry around all my books. And that book is If Cats Disappeared from the World. It is a translation from Japanese by Genki Kawamura. And it is translated by Eric Selland. This book is about a man who is dying, and on the last day of his life, the devil appears and offers him one more day to live. And in exchange, the devil will make something disappear from the world. Then I think at the end of that day, the devil reappears and offers the man one more day to live. And that pattern, repeats for several days, while every day the man loses one more important thing from his life. And as I understand it, the book is about what is it that makes life worth living, and what are the things that we would be willing to give up for, one more day on this planet, and what are the things that without which that last day just wouldn't even be, valuable to us. So very excited to read this, and it just has this beautiful little cover art of, I think the cat's name is Cabbage in this book, and that's also so sweet. So I'm pretty excited to read this, but this also is not on my first TBR for the year because, again, I'm just trying to really focus on getting through a couple of these classics that I have been wanting to read and, have not felt ambitious enough to go for. And then the last book I did not buy in the UK. This is one that I have had for over a year and never read, and that is The Custom of the Country by Edith Wharton. And this is the last book, the third book on my TBR for January and February. I have been wanting to read this for absolutely ages, and just every time I pick it up, I'm just not in the mood for it. And so I think I'm going to start the year with this book. It is about a young woman from the Midwest who moves to New York City to seek her fortunes, and her essentially experiences of social life in New York City in the, I think, sort of early 1900s. And it is, a commentary on social customs and class. It's supposed to be quite funny and, very well observed. I've never read anything by Edith Wharton, and so I'm looking forward to experiencing her writing style because people really rave about it. The little blurb on the back also says that the protagonist of this book is Wharton's most selfish, ruthless, and irresistibly outrageous female character. So that is also very intriguing to me. And so I'm going to really try to actually finally make some progress on this one. There you have it. There are the 3 books that are on my TBR going into the new year, and 2 other books that I bought over the holidays that I am excited to get to at some point, hopefully soon. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to hear more from me, please consider subscribing. And thank you so much for spending some of your one wild and precious life with me watching this video.